What's going on, guys? The Casual Athlete is back. Yes, we've missed you guys over the last couple of months, but Longy and I have been doing a bit of rest and recuperation in preparation for the off-season. We've done a little bit of work behind the scenes, which you will get to know about through the off-season as well. But we're here to give you a bit of an early Christmas gift, aren't we, Longy? We're going to be taking a look at all of the teams' off-seasons to this date so far, and it is just about 2 weeks before Christmas at this point. We're so excited to get into it. Lots of news in recent weeks. And who are we starting off with, Longy?
Yeah, man, look, we said no content until January, but here we are. Off-season's been exciting. Starting with the Tigers, right? So each of these teams get put into a different tier. But for the Tigers, there have been some changes to the roster, but the big thing for them is they sacked their entire board and their CEO stepped down. So that's a bit of a plus. That pushes them into the S tier for me. If we have a look at the player moves, I mean, we can talk about who should be on that board going forward. But like Aiden Caesar comes in, Jaden Sullivan comes in. They've got the Finu brothers. They've done some exciting stuff in terms of building for the future. They lose Luke Brooks and Dane Laurie and Joe Offangawi last year, obviously, as well. So I don't know. It doesn't feel like a big net positive for them, but their roster was better than they performed last year. So for me, it's an S tier. Do you have anything else to add there?
On the side of it being an S tier, I think maybe it moves them from F to C just a little bit. Just because I think it's what fans wanted, right? I think a lot of Tigers fans have been calling for this front office to be sacked, Pascoe resigning, everything. There's still a little bit of the old Hanji Patelis is still there. As well. So there's still a bit of the smell lingering around, and it's not the desired smell that you'd want. Maybe get the janitors in there, although did they sack them too? I'm not too sure. Yeah, not much in the way of signings. Nothing to get really excited about, is there? I mean,
I'm gonna cut you off. We'll go B tier. We'll meet in the middle. I think that's fair. Next up, we got the Broncos though. Broncos. This one's pretty controversial because they made the grand final last year. Obviously a very good roster. Now, we can look at the pluses and minuses all day. Before you go into that, I want to have a look at the re-signings. So keeping Pat Carrigan, keeping Payne Haas, a few of these other guys as well who have done a good job for them. A few of those depth guys too, you thought they might have lost. I'm sort of thinking that the Broncos, while the net roster change isn't great, they've got a lot of guys who are maturing and developing every year. So for mine, it's not as bad as it looks on paper, but obviously there are some big losses there.
Yeah, one of the biggest junior systems in the country as well. I think it was very interesting last year's grand finals, probably the two best junior systems going around these days. You got the Broncos who are so well known for doing that in Queensland, and then you've got Penrith who have done it over the last 5 years. Just Broncos again. I think they've also taken a little step back. They've gotten rid of a bit of experience in Capewell as well. I think Farnworth was probably a top 2, if not maybe you could argue top 3 center in the comp last year. That's going to be a big hole to fill. I don't know who's going to fill it. I think they've taken a little bit of a backward step, and I can't put them really any higher than B at this stage. I can't. If you can make a case to me for A, then I'll go with you. But
no. It's been rough. Dude, it's been rough. Yeah. Flegler and Herbie, they produced a ton of meters through the middle. Like Herbie's one of those 150 meters a game centers, and you don't replace that very easily. So for me, it's a C tier. I think they've gotten a lot worse. I'm more just saying it's not an F tier, right? Because if they didn't have the guys they were retaining, it'd be an F tier off season for mine.
It'll be really interesting to see what they do. Yeah. What they do with Ezra Mam as well, whether they get him, will definitely sway me a bit as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think they'll keep him. He looks like he's going to stay. Canberra Raiders. Now, this is another one. We've started with some pretty rough off seasons, if I'm being honest. Canberra, look, we can talk about all these other things, but you lose Jack Whiten, who's kind of been the core of this team for a long time. They lost Josh Hodgson last year as well. I guess they only lost him a couple of weeks early before he sort of stopped playing anyway. But for them, not a great offseason. I mean, looking at these gains like Troy Duggan, Kale Weeks, I don't know. He had a couple of really good games when he first came on. He was playing off the bench, and he just didn't seem to have that same intensity when he got to the starting side. So, because that Manly fullback spot, right? Like, no one goes poorly there. Ruben Garrick is a top 5 fullback when he plays there. Even Tolotau Kola, he was fantastic there. KO Weeks should have been good, and he didn't show much. So I'm a bit bullish over him there.
Yeah, there's not much you can kind of say about in a positive light about the Raiders off season so far. It's probably lost their franchise player and haven't really done anything to replace him. Simi Sasungi was okay for the Knights last year, but I mean, doesn't move the needle for me at all. And even some of their re-signings, I think Seb Chris will probably slot back into that centre role, and we might see a bit more Xavier Savage this year, which I'm hoping for because it's been talked about for 3 seasons now.
We have to. And it's a great forward pack. I'm surprised none of the halves want to go there because you're playing behind a fantastic forward pack. You've got some very explosive outside backs there too. It's a good spot, but like, is it an F tier?
Yeah, it's our first F tier for sure. Like, in my opinion, the Raiders have had the worst off season.
That's rough, man. That's rough. Because I like the Raiders, but it's been tough. I mean, the Doggies, they've had a different off season. So they've had a couple of very big off seasons in a row with just big moves, right? I'm going to talk about. I'll talk about a couple of these. There's some mixed bag moves here as well. Stephen Crichton, right? He's got to play fullback for mine. You're paying him that money. He's that talented. He's moved to the Dogs for a reason. It's to play fullback. Stick him in at fullback. Give him that first shot. Give it at least half a season before you make any calls on it, right? Because he's going to take a bit of time. They're quite a new spine playing together. He's new to fullback. Like, you just have to give it time, not panic. And I think Seraldo's the right guy to do that. So I think Crichton's a big up for them. I mean, who else are you looking at here?
Yeah, well, it's the 3-horse race, and it's going to be very juicy talking about next year going into the season. I probably might sit down and do a video myself on the 3 options, Taff, Tracy, and Crichton, as to why I think which one of them should play fullback. But their constant, really aggressive signing of players that it's just throwing darts at a dartboard and seeing which one hits the bullseye. I mean, if you do enough of it, maybe some of it comes off and you walk away with, like, a pretty decent payoff. But it's just they're letting go of players and signing players at an unprecedented rate in the last couple of years, and none of it has been focused on building a solid forward pack, which is what they need. Like, it's just bizarre how they keep signing all these outside backs, and a lot of 14s. They seem to be really good at signing bench players, but I'm not really seeing any.
Let's cover these guys, man. Like Drew Hutchison, Jamin Salmon, Blake Taff, Kurt Mann, Jake Turpin. You could say Connor Tracy. Like they got a stack of these guys. They re-signed some good players. So, I mean, the re-signing list, you got Matt Burton, Jacob Kraz, you've got Jacob Preston, Blake Wilson. Like, these are guys for the future. So I like those moves. Overall for the Dogs, I'm optimistic though, right? Like, when you're coming from where the Dogs are coming from, and I'm a Para fan, right? So I've experienced what they're experiencing. You kind of have to take these shots, and you're not getting that first pick on the free agency normally. So they've done fantastically well to pull in Stephen Crichton. I think Josh Curran is just a cracking signing as well. Like, he's a guy who's been at the Warriors for a while now, and he was just out of favor over the last 12 months. There must be something off the field because he's too talented to be playing that role. He'll come in there. He plays 13. You got Kickout coming back and playing full season as well. Got Preston there, who just unbelievable how good he was in a pretty beaten roster. Like, I think it's interesting for them. I think it's a move in the right direction, having a locked in fullback in Stephen Crichton. I don't think they should fluff around with Taff or Connor Tracy there. I think Connor Tracy is a good center. And like, we haven't even talked about Bronson Jerry, who won me the Supercoach comp in like 2019 in our mates league. So yeah, he could come in. He could be anything as well.
Yeah, like I said, I think the one caveat with Jerry is you can't expect him to come in after 4 years out of the game to play at the same level. I think it's going to take him a few weeks, maybe even half a season to get going. But once he does, we've seen the talent there, and I think he can be a great addition to this team.
On talent, man, I've got one for you. Paul Alamotti. and we'll use this as a segue. Paul Alamotti, losing him. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you think the Dogs will regret that one?
Well, he's going to the Panthers, right? And I think the Panthers have shown in recent years they can turn some pretty average players, like they're the new Melbourne. They can turn some pretty average looking players into some superstars, and we've seen it with guys like Zach Hosking going there, making a difference. We've seen Luke Garner won a grand final this year, played a magnificent role in the grand final as well. And it's one of those things where he's going to a great system under a great coach, 3-time premiers at this stage.
Mate, give me a number. Give me a number. What do you got?
They're going to regret it, definitely. I do think they've had a good offseason, though, and I would put them in the A tier for some
I'm with you there, man.
Yeah.
I'm with you there. They've taken enough shots. Look, worst case scenario, they have great depth, right?
Yeah.
If they can add a prop or two, that's great. Max King's off contract after this year as well, so that's very dangerous for them. The Sharkies next. The Sharkies don't usually have huge off seasons. Like they've been sort of pretty stable for a bit now. Here we go. Yeah, Billy Burns, Michael Gabriel, Wade Graham, Manikavalu, Connor Tracy. I mean, they lose a bit of depth. I don't know if they've replaced Wade Graham or Connor Tracy, really. Matt Moylan's obviously a loss as well. They're committing to Trindle. So that's interesting. Gotta get back to it now. I don't know. I mean, I think this one's pretty quick. For me, it's a team that was pretty good. They haven't really solved any problems or hurt any problems. Are we putting them in the B tier because they haven't really downgraded much either? Or
I do think it's a downgrade losing guys like who have been very key to their depth for the last couple of years, like your Matt Moylans, like your Connor Tracy's. It's going to take a little bit of a workaround, but I think Fitzgibbon's smart enough to get around that. Make or break year for a guy like KL Iro because he's off contract at the end of this year. I think there'll be a number of clubs lining up to sign him.
He'll go to Parramatta. But have you got them in the C tier then, or?
Yeah, I've got them ahead of the Broncos, though. I do think that
C tier Sharks. Let's pound through these. Let's up the pace. We got the Dolphins. Dolphins getting up in the pace. That's good timing with the speed they have on that roster. Look, I'm pretty hyped on this actually, and so for every reason that we said about the Broncos having downgrades, these guys have taken all those players. So you go Herbie Farnworth, you go Flegler, right? That is some genuine superstar Origin level. Well, Farnworth obviously doesn't play Origin, but Origin level sort of talent that's coming into that roster. Herbie is just on a different level as far as centers go. He's going to get a lot of responsibility and a lot of freedom in this team. So I'm pretty excited about that. Do you think Avarillo makes a big difference here, Moles?
Definitely. Their outside backs was one of their biggest problems last year. They were chucking in guys left, right, and center. Val Tavare, Ewan Aitken, 1 week, Jack Bostock, all these guys, aside from Jermaine Asako, who was the only real.
How good is Asako, though, eh? Yeah. What a man.
But get some people in there to back him up, and that's what they've done. They've signed 2 pretty classy centers, and especially in Herbie Farnworth, as you said. But the great thing about their roster as well is they don't have too many guys leaving because being a new club, they signed a lot of players for a number of years. So their roster stays relatively simple, but it also can expand because they have more cash, because they proved everyone wrong this year as well. They can, start to work those angles a little bit better. And that's what I love about the Dolphins. I think this is an A off season so far for them.
So the one thing I'm going to say here that makes it an S tier off season in my eyes is the re-signed list. So you get Tommy Gilbert, Jermaine Asako, Conley Lemuelu, Jeremy Marshall-King, Tessie New, not so much, but also Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow. Like that is the core of what overperformed for them last year. I'm not saying that they're 100% going to make the 8 this year or anything like that. I think it's super competitive, but I think in terms of sustainable growth and building on the roster they had last year, this is an S tier off season. It's not going to win the comp this year, but it's just very smart, very methodical. Would you battle me on putting them?
No, not at all. I was edging between S tiers. Sometimes I like to save the S tier for the Royal of Royals, the King of Kings, and No, I think they've definitely
with them,
shown
right?
this year. They've plugged holes and done it really well in a really effective financial way as well.
Now, for the next one here, the Titans, right? Do we count coaches? Do we talk about Des Hasler? I don't think we can spend more
I
than
think we
10 seconds
can.
on him.
I think even
Okay,
though
it's
we
exciting.
got it announced, I think we can because he's a guy who's going to come in there and basically change the entire culture, right? So it's basically going to be a new look Titans to me.
Done.
You're
Done.
right.
Hasler moves them up one tier for me then. But
Yeah.
then you look at these changes, right? And I love this website, but it keeps hopping around. Zero Tackle, great website though. Yeah, you sort of look. I mean, the losses are not crazy. I'm looking at this loss list. Like they lost Sexton midway through last year. He's a depth piece. It's a lot of depth they lost. They got some guys who are kind of depth pieces as well. I'm going to say it's a neutral C tier. I mean, some good players were re-signed. It's
Just their re-sign list alone is huge.
Yeah, so it's probably a B tier then. Just they sort of stayed the same. But then you go to A tier with Hasler, in my eyes.
Oh yeah, I do think that just because of their re-signings alone and having so many good players locked down for a long period of time, just pushes them just above that B tier for me. So I agree with you.
They could make the A as well.
Desi's great. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So if we go to Manly then. Manly's had a really interesting offseason. And there's actually people in the media talking about how Luke Brooks is going to win the Dally M right now. So, like that's kind of like, it's obviously not going to happen. But I genuinely think, though, that being the 6 in this team and not having the pressure, like DCE, you couldn't pick a better 7 to play next to in terms of bringing out a good 6. DCE is a cracker. You've got Turbo there as well. You bring Brooks in. I'm looking at the rest of this list. They've got some depth guys coming in. Like Waddell is solid. Jackson Paulo is solid. Tommy Talau is solid. You lose some of your future. Obviously, Morgan Harper, he'll be Dally M Center of the Year at Parramatta this year as well. I want to believe. I'm looking at this. I don't think there's too much to say here. I think they've kind of shuffled the chairs a bit. I mean, do you think Luke Brooks recaptures that form? Is that like, what do you reckon?
One thing I'll just say about him is he probably played some of the best footy of his career next to a solid 7. And that's, for me, guys like Moses and Benji Marshall, when Benji Marshall was in the team. Not too long ago, he was quite close to winning the Dally M. And, this year with the pressure being off him, new start for him, I'm really thrilled for him. I hope it goes well. And I think the Sea Eagles, yeah, you're right, have shuffled their deck a little bit and just kind of their biggest issue is Tommy Turbo, and it's always going to be that. But we can get into that at some other point in time. But I think they're B tier at the moment as well.
I would agree with that. I think it's a strong B tier. I think Brooks is a good addition for them. Josh Schuster goes back to the edge. Whether he can do that defensively is another question, but that's not for this video. Storm up next, and there's all this talk on the offseason that Storm are looking at shopping Pappenhausen around. That would have been more interesting than what we're going to look at here, with 2024 gains, none, 2024 losses, kind of the edge of their bench, right? I don't think that's heaps to say. I think it's neutral. I think it's flat.
No, I disagree and say that this is a C tier for me, because over the last couple of years, their biggest issue has been depth, and they haven't signed anyone of note to replace that depth that they've needed in especially the later stages of the competition. And we've seen it with Pappenhausen. Hughes has gone down for periods this year. Even Munster was injured for a bit. Like, you can't go through this competition without expecting injuries. And right now, I think the Storm have got their cap locked up in a couple of players, and it's not working out in terms of the depth piece for them. And it's something they need to fix, and they didn't address it. So
I'd pay that. Yeah, I think it's in the forwards as well. You lose Tarek Sims, right? And he's a seasoned guy. Their forward pack is very light as well. So, and that was pretty obvious in the finals last year.
Not punchy enough as well. It's not big enough, not punchy enough. They don't make enough meters.
I mean, you lose the Bromwich brothers, you lose Brandon Smith, you lose Tarek Sims now. I mean, Eli Katoa could go to another level, but yeah, okay. C tier for them. The Waz. Now, without even looking, obviously Roger Tuivasa-Sheck comes in. Very recently, Kurt Capewell as well. Now, before we go into it, RTS, I want you give me a snappy answer on this. RTS, is he the center or the fullback?
Fullback.
I agree. All right, good. We're on the same page there.
Yep.
Kurt Capewell comes in. Look, Chanel Harris-Tavita, does he get back in, or is it Metcalf, or is it?
Well, it
Sorry,
provides another angle for Metcalf to want to do better, right? You know, you've always got to bring someone in to threaten someone's position to, you know, kind of cause them to show out a bit, you know. So there's another challenge piece there to see who's going to go alongside Sean Johnson. And after the year he had, you'd want that competitive nature at the Warriors. I do think CNK should get a look in, and he shouldn't be dismissed for the year that he had last year. He was phenomenal in terms of bringing the ball back, but I just think Roger offers that extra attacking piece that CNK just has never really developed.
Would you ever go RTS 6?
Because
they've been. Think about it. I mean, they've been running sixes for a long time. I personally think that CNKs are going to be a really good center, so I think it's better to do it that way. But if you want to keep them both in the spine, like RTS could easily play the role that Tamari Martin was, plus another 15 runs a game, right? Like, yeah, it could work. But look, for their offseason, when you lose Josh Curran, you lose Bailey Siren, and you lose some depth in the outside backs as well. But you bring in Capewell, who's a genuine starter. Bring in RTS. I mean,
I like it.
Is this an S tier?
Yeah, it's tough to go S tier. I mean, he is a former Dalian medal winner. So
have we seen anything suggesting that he's not going to be that guy this year? Like, he's not that old.
No, he's not. But you maybe think that adjusting back to the NRL could take a little bit of time to get going. But I do think that that he could be one of those players that really moves the needle. He's only 30 at this stage.
Yeah,
so he's in the latter stages, but I almost think, running six could be a really interesting option, to be honest.
It could be. And maybe this uncertainty stuffs them around. I personally think they're due a regression, the Warriors. Yep. I think my view is this is an S tier offseason, but I think they overperformed last year. So these additions will keep them at the level they were, potentially. But last year, what they did was crazy. Like, I don't know if they can replicate that, especially with Phil.
You're off the Waz train.
We'll do a ladder predictions video later, but I'm a little sus on the war. I think there's some teams in the 8 that will really need to fight to keep their spots. Because when you got South Sydney, North Queensland, and Parramatta sitting on the edge of the 8, they're all teams that'll push in. So who makes way? We'll figure it out. But look, S tier for the off season. The Knights. I actually don't even know off the top of my head what the Knights have done. They've brought in Cogger and some other names. I don't know Will Price.
I can talk a little bit on some of the guys that they brought in. High Pierce Paul and Will Price. Will Price, first of all, son of the great Leon Price, who never made it over to the NRL, but played for England for a long period of time, was a fantastic player. These two guys are 22 and 21 years old. They're both of Jamaican descent. They played, Kai Pearce-Paul just played for England as well in the World Cup just gone. Did a pretty decent job. And then also Will has played a bit of junior for England as well. So they're both centers or outside backs. I think Kai Pearce-Paul is also 6'5" and about 105 kilos. So big boy, going to take a lot of stopping. If they can get the best out of some of their English talent, like they did with Dom Young, then I think the Knights can be good again. But I think I'm also kind of in the camp that they had a lot of guys overperform last year. And just like you said for New Zealand, I'm going to say that about the Knights as well.
I agree, man. And like, you look at these losses, you go Lockie Miller, Dom Young, you got Kurt Mann, who did a job last year. Lachlan Fitzgibbon is an underrated one as well. They've lost a lot of guys who can sort of come in and do a job, and they haven't brought that many of those guys in. I think Cogger's a pretty good player. Everyone looks better in the Penrith system, but he should do all right for them.
Yeah, it's like Thomas Jenkins as well.
Yeah. Look, overall for me, I'm thinking
C.
It might be C or F.
Really? Wow.
I really think they weakened. I think Dom Young is a big loss, man. And I think Fitzgibbon's a big loss, and they've got a lot of guys who are sort of moving up in age as well.
Yeah,
So
Gagai a year older.
Mm.
Frizzell a year older as well.
Frizzell's one of my favorites, man, but he can't keep doing what he's doing. Like the way he plays, he's so physical. It's a compliment to him, but also it's going to catch up. Like for me, it's a high F tier off season for them. I mean, are you happy with that or?
Well, I was already saying C as well. So, I mean, to drop them down even further won't be any skin off my nose. I mean, they can come after me all they want, but you're the one who put them there.
Let's come after you now because you're a Cowboys man and we've got the Cowboys coming up. So, North Queensland, you got Clifford coming back. Yep, coming back. You got McKaylee, Vilea, and then you lose Peter Hiku. Okay, I mean, so Riley's price a little bit.
This is a lot of the same as kind of what I see like with Melbourne. We had a lot of injuries last year as well. The big talking point this year, though, will be about Kili Kefu, Feni Fuiaki, and Helam Luki. If we can keep both of them, I'm not sure we can, especially with Nanai being in the team. They're both going to want to start at some point in their careers.
Well, and Luciano, right?
Yeah, and Luch. Yeah, I completely forgot about Luch as well. So I like Clifford coming back. I'm a big fan of Jake Clifford. I thought when he was leaving us, he was just starting to hit that sweet spot of taking over his games with his boot. Like his kicking game is such an important feature of his game, and it adds a good depth piece. If we have an injury, hopefully not, to Dearden and Townsend and these guys, he can come in and play the role that he's played for Queensland normally. And I like Vialami Vilea, young guy, centre. Big body, can break tackles, just needs a little bit more time out there to figure out his role as well. But then we've also probably got a couple of guys lining up for that Hiku spot. So we'll see. It'll be very interesting to see who we go with to start the year.
I will say too, what a legend, James Tamau. What a career. Like, do you remember him busting onto the scene and scoring 50-meter tries? That guy was just a cracking prop, man. So good. But for this off season,
it's not.
It's not bad though, right? You lose Hiku.
No, it's bad. It's a bit like Melbourne. I feel like they've got to be in the C tier because they didn't get worse, but they didn't get better. Like if you don't do anything,
Melbourne Cowboys, Cronulla, fair enough. Now Parramatta, my boys. I have problems with last year's off season more than this year, which is why we didn't make this video last year because I was too depressed about losing Reed Marnie and Isaiah Papali'i. But all right, so we get Morgan Harper, we get Kelma Tuolangi, we lose some guys.
Jake Arthur, huge loss.
Look, I mean, we lose our hookers, man. That's what we lose. But look, first, all right, I'm gonna come in with something. I'm gonna try. I did this last year with Josh Hodgson, so it's not usually accurate. But I'm gonna try and justify the signings. I think Morgan Harper, right? Since Jamie Lyon and Steve Maddai, when have we seen a Manly center play well and look good? Like normally they look a bit unassuming, a bit lost, and then when they move to other positions, so you look at I know you look at the guys when they switch to fullback, for example, right? They look pretty good there. So I think that maybe the Manly center spot is not a good spot to be. Morgan Harper, he's a big boy. He's a big bopper. And it's a very simple job to be a Parramatta center. You got to run a straight line while Sean Lane dances around, Gutho sweeps around the back, and Sivo beats the tackle to score. That's all you got to do. I think Morgan Harper might look better than he did at Manly at Parramatta. That's the best I can come up with.
I think he's a bit of a grub, and that kind of helps as well.
Don't mind it. Don't mind it at all.
I don't mind. You lose one grub in Nathan Brown, and then you replace him with another grub. That's fine. No, I kind of like Morgan Harper for the defensive standpoint. He's a very good defensive center. I just don't know. He hasn't really got the speed to really threaten anybody, but he's solid. He's got some decent NRL experience, and he's tried and tested at that position. So, I mean, he's just pretty much plug in and play there. The interesting one for me is Kelma Tuolangi, to tell you the truth. Like, can someone unlock his talent, please? Because he's got a lot of talent, but I just don't ever see it week in,
So
week
if
out.
you were going to send a raw back rower to a club, which club would you think has the history of unlocking that?
North Queensland Cowboys.
Yeah, I mean the Cowboys uncover them. Parramatta signs them and makes them good. Isaiah Papali'i, Sean Lane, Bryce Cartwright at like 29 years old last year. Like he's at the right place to Longy. Look, I put them in the S tier, and we'll put them back down to where they belong. It's probably a little bit of a downgrade, isn't it? It's probably down that C tier, right?
Yeah, it's just they haven't really gotten worse, but they haven't gotten better. I mean, I keep saying that about a couple of teams at this point in the
There's some
off
good
season.
teams too. Like it's all good teams in that C tier. That's tricky. I mean, these guys need to find something, I think. Penrith now. Now, surely Penrith is in a lower tier. Please be dropping down. I mean, Paul Alamotti we talked about, like he's gonna have a time in Penrith. He's gonna be special. If we jump to fantasy for a second, I might start with him this year if he starts round 1.
I agree.
Yeah, he could be very good. I mean, look, he was raw last year, and he had some good moments playing next to Addo Carr, so you could see him elevated in that situation. But it was a rough year last year. I mean, it's tough being a Bulldogs center. Yeah, I think he'll be all right. I mean, do you like the rest of it? Like, look, Schneider is exactly the kind of guy they sign. Looks good for a year or two, and then someone else pays big money for them. Like Sean O'Sullivan, like Jack Cogger. Like he's a good fundamentals footy player. Good depth.
This signing list of people coming, it just screams we're the it kids in class right now. It's a bunch of young guys looking to probably expand their career horizons a little bit more than they currently have. They're trying to build their stocks, right? Guys like Riley Price, young guy from North Queensland as well. Brad Schneider had a pretty decent stint, I thought, at Canberra, but then got shipped off to the Super League. He's done an all right job there, come back, and now he's playing a 3-time premiership winning team. I do think it is a downgrade just from the quality of players they lost in 2 guys, and it's Stephen Crichton and Spencer Leniu. I just think those 2 guys alone don't make up for the signings that they made this year. And a lot of pressure is going to be put back on Leota and Fisher Harris as a result of Spencer Leniu leaving. But
the one thing I would say is if you got Paul Alamotti for 4 years, then I might try to write off Crichton. Crichton's obviously the better player, right? But you could maybe start to make that case. But they got Alamotti for 1 year. So it's not worth much to them. They're gonna have to pay full price if he goes well. Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a downgrade. I don't think it's an F tier downgrade. I think they've been very intelligent with how they've handled this. This is just part of winning 3 comps in a row as well. To me,
keep your cool, Panthers fans. Like we're just judging the off season as a whole. Like we don't hate your team. They clearly are a very good team.
Yeah, it's the top 8 that's sitting in the C tier anyway. It's basically the top 8 I'm going to predict. Like, so it's not even a diss. The C tier is where it's at. If you're already good enough, you don't have to make any changes. But I do love that we look up this list, right? The teams improving are the teams that are a bit further down the ladder. So I hope we see them push right up and fuck some of these teams off.
And then there's 2 teams that we have in the F tier that made the 8 last year as well.
Bang. Exactly. Yeah. So the Bunnies now, look, the Bunnies had one of the all-time collapses last year. Like anyway, look, you bring some guys in, you don't lose too many guys from this roster. So you bring Jack Whiten in. Sean Kepi is a guy as well. Sean Kepi is a dude. Like he can play 40 minutes a game. He's a big body. They've sort of been lacking that. They had Tola in and out last year. I think they need a Sean Kepi. And I think Jack Whiten, you chuck him in at center, him alongside Campbell Graham. I mean, do they have Tass still? Is Tass going to play on the wing or?
Yeah, Tass will be there. I don't know if he'll get in, to tell you the truth. It'll be
Tass is good.
It'll be a real toss-up between him and Tane Milne at this point.
Tass is a great center, though. Like, I think he's fantastic. I'd take it at Parramatta, but
the Bunnies seem to reinvest a lot each year in their own talent. Last year they didn't sign anyone. I mean, it didn't work out for them too well in the regular season, but I think that may have been a different story. I just think that this is a pretty quality off-season. It's just due to one player, and it's the player that we've known is going to be going there since, I think, about round 8 last year.
Yep.
And it's Jack Whiten. Like, he's a former Dally M medal winner. And if you chuck him into a team, it could be too many personalities for a relatively young coach to handle. But
He's tough,
I
man.
do rate the season.
He's
I
tough.
do rate the signing.
He's also good friends with Latrell. Maybe he sort of works well with him. One thing I think, Hame Sele, I really like Hame Sele. I don't think he's gotten the credit he deserves in his career so far. I hope he gets good minutes at St. George and shows out, because he got criminally low minutes at South. There must be something I'm missing with him. I mean, he's not a pure fundamentals footy player, but so explosive when he gets out there and goes hard. I think he's a loss. Liam Knight, we talked about during the season last year as well. He goes all right. He's not a big minute player, but you're bringing Kepi. I think Jack Whiten's the play. Look, it's not good enough for an S tier off season.
A tier,
yeah, A tier. I agree. If they had one more move, maybe if they.
I think they're so strapped for cash, though. They can't make any more moves, to be honest.
But if they got like a back rower, like an edge back rower or something, even like a Tua Lungy, to be honest, like would have been an interesting move.
Wouldn't have been like
that. A bit of ability. Anyway, that's all right. There they go. They go to the A tier. Put them behind the Titans. I think the Titans had a better year. St. George Illawarra, obviously they got Hame Sele that we just saw there.
Corey Allen, State of Origin winning fullback.
Corey Allen, that's not even on here yet. Corey Allen, Kyle Flanagan, if he plays hooker with Jacob Little and they do a 1-2 punch kind of thing, I don't mind that. I think they've got a pretty good pair of hookers there to work with.
Yeah. Their losses are pretty interesting to me. I think they lost a bit of their future in Jaden Sullivan. I think they'd want that one back. Yeah. Just with what happened to Tolotau and Monet. Aaron Wood's huge loss during the middle of last year.
Sharon, good commentator, Woodsy. Good
I actually
radio
think,
personality.
I actually also think that Billy Burns is a bit of an underrated loss. I think last year he was starting to really come into his own a little bit, and really just he plays so hard. He had a lot of heart out there, and I think that's something that the Dragons are missing in a lot of their performances. Someone who's willing to go out there and put their body on the line. And I just don't see it from the Dragons each and every week. And Billy Burns had that. It's just a bit of a mess. Although, one thing that we did do earlier in this video is we rated a team based on their requirement of coach. And they now have Shane Flanagan.
Flanagan's a good coach. He's a good coach, and he knows Kyle as well from previous work they've done together. So, I mean, do we think he's good? Like, I think Hasler is the perfect fit for the Titans, right? Do we think that Flanagan is the perfect fit for the Dragons? Like, I think maybe you can make a
slight move down to the Illawarra. I think it's a good.
Have they lost too much though?
It's a good move for them. No, I don't think they have lost a lot. What I think they have done is a lot of their younger juniors seem to want to go somewhere else. I think Flanagan has actually been in the junior development system a lot over the last 4 years or so at some other clubs. So one thing I think he'll stop immediately is those younger juniors from the Illawarra trying to go somewhere else. So
I'm just struggling a bit though. Like you've got, I'm here for me, a surefire sign that a club's not doing the best is when you hear players in the media talking about the positions they want to play. Right? Yeah. You never hear that from the Storm. You never hear that from the Panthers. Like I'm hearing Jack Bird sort of talking about it, like where he wants to get back to the outside backs. He's training a bit in the forwards, and he's not a bad guy. I'm not blaming him, by the way, but it's just that uncertainty is never a good thing. You hear Adam Dewey talk about it at the Tigers as well. Like, it's Adam Dewey talks about some other stuff as well, but it's never a great sign. I mean, look, still though, for me, it's either a B tier or an A tier. So top end of B or bottom of A. I'm open to your call there.
For the Dragons, are you saying that just on coach, pretty much? Is that
pretty much just on coach? Yeah, I think Hame Sele adds a bit of spice as well, but yeah.
I'll go B tier just because I don't think it's. Flano's been out of the game for a fair bit, whereas Desi is only about 1 year removed.
Flano won a premiership for that part of the world though, so Yeah, he can break a drought. But all right, fair enough. And then we got the Roosters.
The last team.
Last and least, yeah. Last and least. So the Chookies, mate, you got some interesting signings. Like Spencer Leniu comes in. Look, Dom Young, when they signed him, and he was in and out of first grade at the time, and he just transformed from signing with the Roosters. He could do anything going there. I mean, those two guys are top tier talents. Do you have any of these other guys that you want to talk about on this list?
Well, the one I want to talk about isn't there right now.
Is it the loss of Corey Allen?
No. It's the Wallabies player that they've just signed. And forgive me if I'm pronouncing this guy's name wrong. Mark Nawaqantawanasi. That was a dreadful pronunciation, but I had a crack. Do not.
Look, that's a name I wouldn't run straight at. So maybe pronounce it right next time. But
yeah, but no, went to St. Pat's at Strathfield. Did Mark, and he's been playing for the Wallabies for a little bit now.
How old's Mark?
He is 23.
I was going to say too young to verse us, mate. In our prime days of 14 Cs, Oak Hill Rugby.
College, yeah. But no, big guy, 6'4", 100 kilos, big, tall winger with a bit of speed as well. So, yeah, it could be a guy who has a bit of, competition for Dom Young there. I think they've obviously got Daniel Tupou on one side, but the transition from rugby
there's
could be interesting.
No competition for Dom Young at all. Not even slightly. Dan Tupou is under threat, I would say. I think he's not guaranteed a spot. You look at the losses as well. Like, there's some depth pieces. Look, Drew Hutchison stepped in and did a job for them quite a few times. Matt Lodge had a decent month of footy for them. Jake Turpin had to do a lot last year with Brandon Smith in and out. Jackson Polo had a good start to the year and then kind of cooled off. I think it's a net positive. I wouldn't call it an S tier. I think it's a low grade A tier off season for the Roosters. But I mean, they're just a good club in general.
Yeah, you're right. It's just good old Uncle Nick and his wads of cash being splashed all over town, and they often get the players that they want as well. Never really seem to lose steam in the off season. They always seem to sign someone to spark a bit of interest, and I think that is the case with Mark as well from the Wallabies. It's another
Look at this contract list though. Gus Crichton, Luke Keary, Joey Manu obviously gone. Got a few other guys like Billy Smith. Sorry, Joe Sawali's gone. Joey Manu not gone. Joey Manu will be gone as well.
Joe Manu.
Yeah,
there's guys there that you can definitely say that they're going to re-sign. Joey Manu definitely springs to mind there. I don't know about Angus Crichton, to tell you the truth.
Crichton's going, man. Crichton's going for sure. Someone will take a gamble on Crichton. Rugby? It's probably going to be the Bulldogs, and they're probably playing with lock.
I think rugby. I think he's going to rugby, personally.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know why.
So would you go A tier?
Yep. Just because it's always consistent.
A tier for the Chooks. So this is the breakdown. This is how we have it. Off-season ratings. We're very close to symmetry. So I kind of want to move someone. If we put Parramatta up to the A tier, it'd be perfectly that. That's all good. More teams had C tier off seasons. But let us know in the comments what you think. If there's any signings that you think should happen for any of these teams, drop those in too. And let us know what you think of this list. Did we get any of them wrong? The answer is probably no. So I guess I won't be talking to you soon. See you, everyone.